And we enjoy it very much. We decided to look, it's well known that Italian coffee is the best in the world, so we decided to look into the market of coffee in Italy. First, we began by introduction, industry overview, best analysis, market volume, market share, market type, demand, supply curve, demand and supply elasticity, factors affecting demand and supply, and that's the approach. I would start by introducing coffee to everyone. I looked for tidbits and pieces of information that might interest you. We all drink coffee, but we may not know a lot about it. Coffee is a brewed drink prepared from roasted coffee beans, the seeds of certain flowering plants in the Coffea genus. Okay, it's a shrub. It takes about 4 to 7 years to mature, to give its fruits. It has white flowers, and the beans itself are the seeds of fruit of the flower. The meaning of the word coffee is English, and it entered English language in 1582 by the Dutch coffee. Borrowed from the Ottoman Turkish kahve, borrowed from the Arabic word qahwa, derived from the verb qahya, which is lack of hunger in reference to the drink's reputation as an anti-suppressant. قهية الشيء معناها لم يرد أن يأكل. قهى الشيء فلانا معناه صده عن الطعام.
Very nice.
It's very interesting. Yes.
The history of coffee dispersion. Now the coffee is drank all over the world, but the legend goes that the goat herder in Ethiopia was herding his goats and noticed that they become excited when they ate from a certain shrub. So he ate from it and noticed that he got excited and awake and stimulated. But this is just a legend. In the first historical report of drinking coffee in the way that we drink it right now, through roasting and grinding and then steeping it in water, was in Yemen in 1401. And it went from Ethiopia to Yemen through the Somalis. It was first used as a stimulant in the Sufi tradition, rituals, to help them stay awake. As we all know, they move around a lot and say a lot of things. That's in the 1500s. By the 1500s, the coffee reached the Middle East, Turkey, Persia, the north of Africa, and the Indian subcontinent here. Then, by the 1600s, it went to Italy, Venice, through trade, and from there to the rest of Europe. So we are also following not just the spread of coffee, but the spread of the word coffee. It started from Arabic, and then Turkish, and then it went to Europe, and then the Dutch took it, and from there, Coffea, and then we come to coffee in Britain. The Dutch East Indies Company took the seeds and planted them in Java, in Indonesia, and Ceylon, which is Sri Lanka. And they used them to cultivate the product there and then sell it in Europe. The British East India Company was planted in India, and then introduced the coffee to the British public, and it became very popular. A few tidbits here, a few interesting information. During the Ottoman Empire, coffee was declared haram because they mistook the excitement that it causes with they thought it was intoxicating.
Yes.
Because it's intoxicating,
Yes.
and so they thought it was more like wine, and so they declared it haram. And when it reached Europe, the Pope there decided and declared it they didn't like it there because they called it Islamic drink.
Yes.
But then they overcame that, and when coffee shops began spreading in Britain, coffee shops became the place where learned people, educated people talk together, and they fomented ideas and became more learned. And it is thought that the coffee shops in Britain paved the way for the Industrial Revolution. And through colonization of Americas, coffee was spread to the Americas. Okay? And coffee was introduced to Brazil in 1727. Why Brazil? Because it's important. The coffee plant is from the genus Coffea, and there are two main commercial species. The coffee caniferum, also known as Robusta, and the coffee Arabica. The coffee plant is a 5-meter high with glossy green leaves, 10 to 15 centimeters, and they have white flowers and red fruits or berries. And this is the coffee seed. An interesting thing here, one of the most expensive coffees in the world is called coffee luwak. Coffee luwak is prepared by feeding this was looking animal, the Asian palm sedate, also called the luwak, the fruits themselves. And when the fruits pass through the digestive tract of this animal, it breaks down some proteins in the coffee seed itself, and it gives it different aroma. It's usually called uniquely rich, slightly smoky aroma with flavor of hints of chocolate. It's very expensive, $160 per pound, or $30 per brewed cup. When we prepare coffee, there are different processes. One of the most important is roasting. We have the coffee seeds start roasting at 200 degrees Celsius, and the caffeine itself begins to break down at 235 degrees Celsius. So controlling the temperature during roasting is very, very important. The time the roast spends in the roaster results in different types of roast: light, medium, dark, and extra dark. The light roast is more complex because it has more of its essential oils. When the dark roast is smoky and bold and more sugary because the starch breaks down and becomes more simple sugars. We have there are differences between the two main commercial species of coffee, the Arabica and Robusta. The one here that was discovered in Ethiopia is Coffea Arabica, and it is there's a difference between the two. Mostly you can see through the seeds. The Arabica is oval with while the Robusta is round-shaped beans. If you want to look at it this way, this is less acidic and less caffeine in it, but it has higher sugar content, and it is thought to be superior than Robusta, and it costs more. But it is also very fragile. It is very hard to keep, and it's very susceptible to droughts and pests. This is the coffee in the wild. This is the area with the Arabica coffee, and here the yellow ones is the Robusta, and these are wild other species of coffee. They also have caffeine. And we noticed here also that the Robusta has more caffeine than the Arabica. That is why it is used in substandard or commercially available coffee, especially instant coffee. Okay. The coffee plant requires certain conditions to grow, certain time of the light of the day, and temperatures. That's why it is grown between these two latitudes, the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer. And this is called the bean belt because it goes around the Earth all over. And as you notice, there is half of it up north of the equator, and the other half is south of the equator. We notice that the Brazil has both grows both Arabica and Robusta. Arabica is only grown in Ethiopia, Uganda, Kenya, and Peru, while the Robusta is in the Southeast Asian countries and some of the west coasts of African countries. It's a vital cash crop. As we notice here also that most of these countries are developing countries. Okay, so they depend on the growth and the cultivation of coffee as a main cash crop for the people living there. Around 100 million people around the world depend on coffee as a main source of income. But they do not get most of the price that they deserve. Okay, they get very little. Most of the price that we pay for in the countries that import coffee go to the traders and the roasters themselves, with very little going to the people who grow the crop. Coffee can be grown in two ways. The traditional way, by planting it with other crops through the shade, and the more common way that's grown under the sun. It needs a lot of water, it needs fertilizer, it needs space, and pesticides. Because it needs space, it is implicated in deforestation, especially in Brazil. Brazil is very well known for its Amazon forest here, and the Brazilian government have decided a long time ago to deforest a lot of the area there, not just to plant coffee, but also to raise cattle. And this is why it's one of the main reasons of deforestation there, because it requires pesticides. There is a pesticide pollution, habitat destruction because of the deforestation, and soil and water degradation because it needs water. And when we remove the big trees and other plants, water, the sediment easily goes with the water. Climate change may significantly impact coffee yields during the 21st century. It is expected that by 2050, a lot of these areas will be degraded. They will not be as suitable for growing coffee as it is now. While others will become more suitable to grow coffee. Why? Because the earth is getting hotter, so the areas become too hot, and the colder areas that used not to grow coffee in, now is very possible to grow coffee in. Oh, then to grow coffee in. Coffee production worldwide. Now that we've seen the countries, let's see which countries are produce the most. In 2019, the world production of coffee was around 10 million metric tons. Around 2 of them comes from Brazil. And then the second country is Vietnam, then Colombia, then Indonesia, and fifth is Ethiopia. So, this is Brazil. This is Vietnam here, because it's the second and it has one. And then we have Colombia and Ethiopia. In what form are coffee seeds or berries sold? They're sold in the green state, which comes after picking the fruit itself or the berry. It's defleshed, and the seed itself is left to ferment and then washed, which requires a lot of water, and then dried on tables, becoming the green coffee. It is these three green coffees that are sold in the market, the commodity markets around the world, in New York Mercantile Exchange and the London International Financial Futures. Okay? They are sold in 60 kilogram bags, and this is the unit by which it is sold. The countries that import coffee the most is the United States, and then Germany, France, and then Italy. It is the fourth country in the import of coffee. And now, in the chat.
Hello everyone. As Hamid said, these are the countries that are producing the coffee all over the world, with Brazil and Vietnam as the top producer. Here, I have taken Germany, the EU as important because we are going to focus on Italy. So Italy importing like 525,000 tons of coffee. I'm going to give a brief about the market in Italy. As we have seen here, this is the GDP of Italy over the last 10 years. It's shown that a slight increase in the GDP until the 2019 because of the COVID-19 problem, and after that it's going up again. Italy population is around 6 million people, and for the coffee there are key players in the market, which are Lavazza, which is top producer of processed coffee, and after that comes Eli and Nestle. I'm going to discuss still. The first thing is political factors that is facing the coffee. As we have seen in the previous slides, there are two producers, which are Brazil, and they are completely different from the countries that are processing the coffee. So political issues between these countries is very important, because sometimes, as we have seen, the US is the top importer for coffee. There are sometimes there is like political issues between these countries. So the US and the top importing company may exert some pressure on this producing countries for coffee to manipulate them in regard to the political issues as well. So also the trade relationships between the European countries and the importing countries like US and Brazilian, South American and African countries must be negotiated, and also also they have to have some tariffs and all trade regulations between them to be. After that, the economic factor, the average inflation rate in the Italy market is around 1% in the last 10 years, and average GDP per capita is about $63,500 US. We can see that from the economic factor, coffee is a beverage that people are willing to pay to buy. So whenever the GDP increase and that the purchase power of the people in Italy increase, they tend to increase their purchase of coffee, or they sometimes upgrade to a better and more expensive coffee. There are also some social factors that we must take in our consideration, especially in Italy. And the whole world. The first, we can consider the whole world, that people nowadays are moving toward a healthier world that, especially Generation Z, they are seeking a better and healthier lifestyle. Some of them say that okay, coffee and caffeine is harmful for themselves, so they want to decrease their consumption of coffee. Now now the coffee producers are trying to make more healthier coffee and alternative drinks such as decaffeinated products that they can offer to these people. The second social factor is the competition now between health and energy drinks to the coffee. Now many people are moving toward energy drinks to boost themselves other than coffee. The third thing, which is mainly connected to Italy itself, that coffee shops there, it's not like here in Egypt or other things like US as Starbucks, as people go there and they stay to drink coffee and to have chat together, and it's like going out. But in Italy, it's a bar. They just go to drink the espresso or the coffee and they leave in just 5 minutes. Regarding the technology, the last few years have witnessed a huge development in the machines and technology that they are using in home or in the coffee shop to produce the coffee and to increase the aroma for people to like and to enjoy. We have seen there now, like whenever we go to the Starbucks and we find this long machine which produce espresso, it produce latte, cappuccino, all these different drinks. Now there is high-tech equipment and premium ingredients that are producing from this sophisticated tools that they use to get the purest coffee from the bean. And now even during the COVID, because of the people staying at home, the online coffee sales have peaked. For the environmental factor, as Hamid has said, coffee is planted only in specific parts, which is the tropical part of the planet, and this is combined with specific climatic conditions. They need a specific temperature. The rain itself, it must be a lot of rain, and sometimes the harvest and the quantity supplies for the coffee is decreased because of this. If this condition is not met at specific years, or there is a drought that can cause the decrease of the harvested coffee. The second thing regarding the environment, that sometimes in these countries they over-irrigate the islands, which cause a harmful effect on the land that they are producing. Last thing, which is considered the legal part or the legal factor, some very few countries till now have regulated that every drink must have a maximum amount of caffeine. It's not all over the world, but some countries they are considering the health and the health regulation now limits the amount of the caffeine that can be inside the beverage. And now go with
Hello everyone. Now we will talk about the coffee demand and supply. In this figure, we will see the production with blue color and the price of coffee according to the years. We will see that when the production with red color, when the production decrease, we see the price still increase. Now we get the data from consumption and importing of coffee from International Coffee Organization, and this data shows that increased in consumption according the year. Here we see the increase in the consumption through the year, according the up and down in price. The price increase and decrease, but the consumption is still increasing. We calculate the graph of demand according Dr. Dua said.
There is a violation.
Yes. We see in the demand, but we will illustrate in the elasticity. We will show that zero elasticity, and here unity elasticity. Here is the supply. Also, we see in the supply the increase in supply, not depend on the price. Yes. And this the supply curve, and this the demand and supply curve together.
And there is a shortage or surplus?
Surplus. Every year we get surplus.
In some places we have shortage, in some places we have surplus.
According to the data, we find every day surplus exists in the inventory. Here, according to the elasticity, we find the estimated price elasticity to coffee. We find 0.3. It's estimated elasticity. This means that the coffee is inelastic, very inelastic. And here we calculated the elasticity according to different in consumption through the year, and find inelasticity and perfect inelasticity. Sorry, perfect inelasticity. The elasticity equals 0 here. It's a perfect inelasticity. And unity elasticity 1, we find this. It's unity elasticity.
Horizontal.
Yes. And also we find the supply is the same, but shifted according to the supply is the demand is increased, and also the supply is increased. Now we talk about the factor.
Hello, I'm going to talk about the factors that currently affecting the demand directly. Coffee currently is one of the most consumed beverages in the world, but starting 2021, there have been a decrease in the overall production for the coffee. While on the other hand, the increase has significantly increased for it. That was driven by several factors for it. Mainly, mainly for the past 20 years, generation mainly by large coffee chains, their main marketing direction was to have the coffee as a part of as an essential part of everyone's day. Mainly that has resulted in Generation Z increasing the demand for it, which mainly called millennials. They were aware of one of the main factors that has driven the coffee consumptions for the last 20 years, also by a significant part in comparison to prior to the 2010. Mainly, what has contributed to the shortage for the coffee? Mainly as the start in 2021, poor harvest due to the bad weather, which has caused by drought and frost in Brazil, which was mainly caused by severe climate changes due to deforestation in the rainforest. Second, difficulties in shipping amid container shortages, and also pushing coffee prices globally. Due to the lack of freight to transport coffee, caused by goods being stuck in transit, mainly caused by congestions at the port and other delivery challenges. Freight costs have increased significantly. Freight costs mainly costed prior to the pandemic around $1,000. In 2021, the food containers was the price has tripled. Now it costs about $10,000, nearly 3 times as the start of 2021. Also, Colombia has contributed by a significant part that resulted in increasing the demand due to also its low harvest yield and low output. Mainly was caused by farmers hoarding their produce, as they already know that the price is going to increase. Even to the international commodity index, the price at the start of 2021 has increased and almost doubled in its price per pound. Arabica coffee beans account for 75% of the world coffee output, mainly produced by Brazil and Colombia, which the couple of them total to almost 40% of the coffee supply. As Brazil is currently facing one of its worst harvests in 2 decades due to severe climate changes, its coffee output is expected to drop further, mainly as due to as coffee as a plant has a very long mature cycle. It takes up to 4 years, which as its crops in Brazil is already damaged. They are currently still thinking about either to destroy the crops entirely and replant it again, which will have a severe negative impact on the current supply, or on trying to salvage what that can be salvaged from their current produce. After low rainfall, Brazilian crop weakened by drought also was hit by a severe cold weather, which also significantly damages the plants. Meanwhile, coffee farmers, as I have stated, currently it is ranked as the third overall coffee producer and the second in Arabica. Second biggest Arabica beans producer. Have failed also to deliver their already stated volume per the agreed amount. As many producers and traders are currently trying to push the Colombian government to encourage the farmers to deliver the produce as has been agreed upon, and even at the increase of the prices. This has led to 10% loss in total output and left exporters, traders, roasters alike facing severe losses. As consequences of the increased prices and sudden spike, it is expected that it will lead eventually to boost coffee production in Central America, India, Vietnam, Africa, mainly Ethiopia, Kenya, and Ivory Coast. As consequently, the increase in demand will yield more profit for them. As they are currently developing countries, they tend to move towards what is the most profitable to them. And actually, they are not to blame when saying that. Coffee plants can take up to 3 years as they have a long mature cycle. As is expected, in the couple of years, in the next couple of years, there will be a severe coffee shortage, and with mostly coffee will be as we would say, a casual commodity. It will be an actual luxury commodity. The conclusion: market is in perfect competition. Coffee is an elastic product.